Hello Summoners and welcome to another ProGuides episode of Best Champions to Main, now on patch 10.15. These champions are all about high performance with low ban rates that are unlikely to get nerfed in the immediate future. Most reliable picks in the game that are the most worthy of investing time in. But before we get started, here's today's question of the day. What role do you think is most broken at the moment? Let us know your answers in the comments below, or join our Discord in the description box to discuss it with the rest of the ProGuides community. Now, without further delay, let's get into the video. We'll start things off in the top lane with Maokai. The tree seems to always ebb and flow between good and really good, and right now, he's kind of being slept on. He can freely farm up in lane with the sustain from his passive and pushing power his Q grants, and once he picks up a couple of items, he's actually able to bully out quite a few top laners, particularly AD bruisers. His W is not just useful for the root, since the CC is nice, but the ability to go untargetable means he can dip under incoming attacks and outplay opponents. His saplings aren't great for trading per se, but offer bush control and can serve as wards. His ultimate is more of a team fighting thing, with the huge spread of roots giving him an excellent tool for disrupting after he engages, or disengaging when the other team tries to force a fight. Maokai's role as an extremely durable healing tank with point-and-click CC make him very consistent with pretty much no downsides, so pick him up before others do. Up next, Kled is another champion that you don't see too many people complaining about on the forums, but when he's in a game, boy does he have an impact. With his Q's hook and grievous wounds and his double dash, Kled is a scrappy duelist, and his W's huge burst of attack speed and finishing auto make him dish out some pain. Trading involves fighting around all three of your abilities, so don't go too hard in the paint until you're level 3. To go for a big trade, E onto your opponent, auto a few times with your W's passive, before following with your second E and your Q. This combo will let you chase them down and yoink them back while dealing maximum damage. If you ever get dismounted, don't be a coward. Keep fighting with autos and your pocket pistol to remount and finish the job. While his ultimate can be used for fighting in the top lane, good Kled players often use it to gank other lanes when they go back to base, and outside of lane phase. It's one of the best engaged tools in the entire game. Sion is an incredible mix of CC, damage, and insane durability. If the enemy team ever does bring him down, Sion's passive revives him for a short while, giving him another chance to bring more victims with him. His Q is his bread and butter, and provides wave clear and trading power when normally laning, or can be used from a brush to land a huge amount of damage and stun the enemy laner. Even at level 1, this ability can be used to thwart an invade as an entire enemy team takes 1/3 of their health and gets stunned for 2 seconds. Yikes. His W's shield and explosion damage is another nice trading tool, but an often overlooked part is the passive, which grants Sion permanently increased HP for every unit kill and champion takedown he gets. This is why you see Sions with heavy damaging builds having more HP than some tanks. They kill mobs faster because of the extra damage they have, and that allows them to stack up more HP. His E's slow can make it easier to land his stun, or just be used to poke down enemies trying to sit out of range of the rest of your kit. But the most fear-inspiring part of his kit, everyone panics a little when they hear the loud bang of Sion's ultimate starting up. Sion himself becomes the skill shot, and aiming it properly is the most difficult part of mastering this champion. Once you do though, you can use it similarly to Kled. Many good Sion players will walk bottom and lane gank with their first ultimate, putting their bottom lane ahead before TPing back to their own lane. Once you learn to steer his ultimate correctly, you'll start seeing the LP pile up. Here's a recap of those top lane builds before we move on. Thanks to the still fresh ghost buffs, Hecarim is thriving in the jungle, making the most of the summoner spell to snowball from the jungle and rampage through teamfights. The extra movement speed not only helps him keep up in fights, but also gives him extra damage thanks to his passive. The extra sticking power lets him chop down his enemies with his spammable Q, with it dealing bonus damage as long as he keeps landing it. His W's aura heals him for a percentage of all damage dealt to his opponents that are in it, resulting in him being sort of a drain tank. The more damage going out, harder it is to kill him. And his E is what makes him so terrifying to marksmen, providing not just a way to catch out targets, but also shoving them back as they take a huge burst of damage. His ultimate's AoE Fear gives him a way to split up the enemy team and isolate a carry. You can then use your E's knockback to push them closer to your team and secure an easy kill on a priority target. Vi's playstyle honestly lines up with the character. It doesn't require much thinking, just punch first and ask questions while punching. Her passive grants her a small shield every so often when she does damage with one of her abilities, giving her sustain in the jungle and adding some tankiness in teamfights. Her Q is what lets her close the gap, and also does a huge burst of damage when she crashes into an enemy. Nothing like face-checking a bush with Vi waiting in it with a fully charged Q. Her W is a passive, making consecutive attacks on a target shreds their armor, dealing a percentage of their maximum HP, and gives Vi a huge burst to her attack speed, meaning that proccing it lets her shred tanks, bruisers, and squishies alike. Her E's auto attack reset hits hard and helps to proc W faster, and in the jungle serves to cleave down camps a bit quicker. The real anti-fun in Vi's kit is her ultimate. The point and click ability is completely inescapable as she unstoppably runs at the target. While she is a very powerful duelist in a 1v1 setting, her ultimate's insanely strong at consistently securing kills when ganking lanes, so that should be your main focus. Why just put yourself ahead when you can win a lane while you're at it? And our last jungler is by no means a new pick, but one that just doesn't get a lot of attention. Because it ties in with the rest of her abilities, we'll talk about her ultimate first. Once she has it unlocked, Shyvana generates Rage, and once the bar is filled, she can cast her ultimate to swoop in as a dragon, modifying her other abilities. Without this, she's pretty much useless in a teamfight setting, so do everything you can to avoid grouping when your ultimate isn't available. Her Q is a 2-hit auto attack reset, and since both hits apply on hit effects, it synergizes super well with Nashor's Tooth. In dragon form, this attack becomes a cleave, meaning you swipe all targets in front of you. Her W's Firestorm gives good AoE damage for clearing the jungle, while the movement speed is super useful in navigating teamfights. But those abilities are just extras. Her E is what makes AP Shyvana so strong. In human form, her E is little more than a blob of fire that does damage in a small line. But in her dragon form, it's a massive nuke that explodes with the force of a Ziggs ultimate, giving her insane poke with a very low cooldown. So, after transforming, you want to shoot out as many fireballs as you can, chunking out the enemy and leaving burning patches that melt anyone inside. The nice thing about playing Shyvana is that you don't really have to stress over making big plays. Her objective taking is extremely good, as she shreds both dragons and Baron. Just keep clearing your jungle, fighting around objectives with your ultimate, as your E pokes out the enemy before they can even contest, and you'll scoop up wins in no time. In case you missed anything, here are the jungle builds again. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why Rumble is on this list. It's not because he's bad, it's the opposite. He has very few losing lanes, and is consistently doing well in solo queue, but has a super low pick rate and ban rate, even among the champions in this video. The first thing to learn when picking up Rumble is how to manage his passive, which gives him a unique resource called Heat. Juggling this above 50% but under 100% is how Rumble optimizes his damage until he's ready to all in, at which point it's fine to overheat for the extra damage. Q gives wave clear and trading power as the flamethrowers spew fire in a cone in front of him. Any opponent that ever wants to think about moving up for CS risks getting burnt. W can be used as offense to chase down an opponent, or defensively, allowing Rumble to shrug off poke, with the movement speed also allowing you to kite away and dodge skill shots. Much like his shield, Rumble's E can be used on both the offensive and defensive side of trades. Often, if someone tries to engage in lane, Rumble can just shoot out his 2 harpoons, not just damaging, but also applying a crippling slow, allowing him to kite back with his W and roast them with his Q. Just experiencing this once can send the other laner back to base, after they realize there's literally nothing they can do to punish Rumble in lane thanks to his versatile abilities. And Rumble's ultimate is actually sometimes used to instantly clear waves and get off a free recall, but obviously it really shines in teamfights, when Rumble gets that perfect angle to cut off the enemy's retreat. Take your time and wait for them to funnel into a choke point, and you'll be single-handedly carrying fights in no time. Annie's back after a bit of a break, and she's still doing really well in the mid lane. Part of what makes Annie so appealing is her simplicity. Her passive stun gives her good trading in lane, as well as gank setup and engaging in teamfights. Her Q is simple and can't be missed, and since it refunds mana, it makes farming a breeze. W gives a bit of extra wave clear power, softening the wave for Q to last hit, and E turns an otherwise immobile champion into a speed demon for a few seconds, letting Annie close the gap and land her damaging spells on the other team when they get too close. And let's not forget about Tibbers, Annie's iconic stuffed bear. Not only does he provide a huge burst of damage with the potential to stun in a massive area of effect, but after he's summoned, he continues to fight to protect Annie, allowing Annie to back off and wait for cooldowns to come back up. Learning to control Tibbers appropriately can actually help your damage output a lot in teamfights, so be sure to pay attention to what he's doing. Keep it simple. Pick Annie, flash, kill carries, get LP. But for our last champion in the mid lane, it's quite a different story from Annie. Vel'Koz is anything but simple. You'll have to take some time to learn to land his skill shots. You may even have to get a degree in math to master his Qs. His passive makes landing his skill shots rewarding as you get an extra burst of true damage. This encourages you to do more than sit back and Q spam, but also makes you punishable since you're going to be shoving the wave as you do it, so be cautious. Though the math degree was a bit of an exaggeration, it will take some practice to learn to hit your Qs consistently, but once you do, it'll pay off, as your opponent struggles to dodge the wacky T-shaped skill shot. W does decent damage, but really just serves as wave clear, and you should almost never use E aggressively. Make your focus wave clearing and poking down your opponent, saving E to disengage when the other laner goes aggro on you, or when you're being ganked by the enemy jungler. While the rest of your kit seems more focused on being a poke mage, your ultimate is a giant death laser that erases pretty much all but the tankiest targets that stand in it for its full duration. Position properly, and you can melt half of an enemy team in no time. Take one more look at the mid lane builds. Bringing things down to the bottom lane, we're starting off with Kog'Maw. Thanks to the drop in super aggro bottom laners, Little Coggers is doing pretty well. Hopefully you don't have to use it much, but if you die, his passive does allow you to hopefully chase down your foes and kill them, or maybe just a few minions to finish an item. Faster recall, a faster wave clear, right? His Q not only gives him passive attack speed, but also does an armor and magic resistance shred on any target he hits with the active. This shred sets him up for his W, which not only gives him a huge increase in range, but also adds a massive amount of damage to his auto attacks based on his target's maximum HP. These two abilities make him the tank shredding marksman that we all know and kinda love. When playing Kog'Maw as an AP champion, his E is a great source of poke, but as ADC, save E to peel for yourself, as the slow covers a huge area on the ground, giving you room to kite threats in teamfights. Kog'Maw's ultimate is also incredibly underrated. While it isn't a crazy engage like Ashe's arrow or a flash flurry of bullets like Lucian's ultimate, the super low cooldown artillery can assist you in clearing waves or poking out the other laner from well outside of retaliation range. At later ranks, the range just gets ridiculous, with the ability to snipe people from an entire screen away. Just position well in team fights and you can shred down any threat before they can even touch you. While not a traditional bot laner, Veigar is doing just as well as any of the marksmen that are standard in the bottom lane, much for the same reason that Kog'Maw is. He's able to happily stack his passive with Q farm, as there aren't nearly as many threats in the bottom lane as there are in the mid. His W helps match the pushing power of his bot lane peers, and serves to soften the wave to make last hitting with Q easier. E can be used to easily set up jungle ganks, and in teamfights, it's easily one of the most obnoxious basic abilities to play against in the entire game. Once it's maxed, it basically has no cooldown and provides a ridiculous amount of zone control. His ultimate is very simple in execution. Point, click, they blow up. But make sure to use it on lower HP targets, as it's an execute and its damage goes way up the less HP a target has. Play safe, stack your passive, and you'll be deleting enemies in no time. Want to play a mage bot, but prefer a kill lane to a scaling hypercarry? Swain may be it for you. His passive allows him to follow up on any crowd control abilities by pulling the target towards him, harvesting a soul that heals him and makes him a bit tankier each time. This pairs great with aggro supports like Nautilus and Leona, and makes bullying immobile carries super easy. His Q serves as wave clear and his primary trading ability. His E can be comboed with a well-timed W to snare, pull back, and slow a target. All of this chaining together, meaning Swain can also set up his lane partner himself without waiting on them to pull the trigger. Additionally, W can be used to scout objectives, bushes, and jungle camps for information, and with the insane buffs to its range on this patch, it's practically global. While it is strong in a 2v2, Swain's ultimate is even better in a team fight, where he drains HP from all targets nearby before exploding for a massive nova of damage, increased by how much HP he healed up over his ultimate's duration. Pick the general and lead your way to victory. Here are those bot lane builds once more. Similar to Annie, Janna's appeal is her simplicity. Peel, shield, win. Her passive grants valuable movement speed for her allies when they move towards her, giving ADCs an easier time when it comes to kiting threats. Her Q's Tornado is super useful for disengaging opponents, and can even be used to stop certain engages, such as a Zac attempting to slingshot onto your backline. Her W is what lets her pressure lane, with the constant point and click poke adding up to a substantial amount of harass over time. But the shield from her E is what makes her a real support, not only protecting your carry, but granting them pretty much a full item's worth of attack damage at the later stages of the game. And when all else fails, your ultimate can peel even the most tenacious of foes, as you shove them away and heal your allies up. Just remember, you want to position safely, yes, but don't position so far back that you can't even help your team. Don't be afraid to be somewhat aggressive in fights and use your W even outside of lane. Janna is easy, but you can't be completely AFK if you want to make the difference in fights. No Yumis here. I know what you're going to say. Yes, 2 enchanters did make this list. And yeah, it's no wonder Kog'Maw's doing well. Sona, much like Janna, is an enchanter that isn't too mechanically intensive, but provides excellent strength to your team. The main difficulty with Sona is knowing how to use your power chord. Most Sona players just use whatever chord they land on, but the best ones know that W power chord is insanely valuable, and will hold their auto attack until W comes back up so they can massively cut the damage of a threat in a team fight. Aside from that, Sona's Q and W provide small but constant poke and heals in lane, and eventually you build a health lead out of it. Outside of lane, you won't often get in range of enemies to use Q, but just providing the Q aura will buff up your allies to empower their attacks. And W's shield aura is massive when you consider how many times you use it in a fight. It's like having a Locket of the Iron Solari, but 5 times in a row. And her E can be invaluable in both escaping and engaging fights, as can Sona's ultimate, which can serve to either peel enemies running down Sona and her carries, or as a follow-up to Wombo combo on top of an ally's engage. And again, like Janna, you don't want to just sit half a screen away from a fight. Get in there, but do so carefully. And you can carry fights in your own way by buffing your allies and disabling your opponents. Want to support, but not really? Zyra is a support only in the sense that she buys a support item, and she doesn't really farm. Otherwise, she's just another mage that can carry just as hard as any mid laner. In lane, hitting Q is basically optional. Yeah, it does damage, but most of Zyra's harass comes from her thorn spitters that spawn when she Qs near a seed sprouted by her passive or W. Hitting her E, though, is a bit more important, since it roots the enemy in place, allowing her ally to follow up with big damage, or for Zyra to layer the CC with her ultimate, which not only does a huge burst of damage, but increases her plant's DPS and knocks up all enemies in the area. Zyra's appeal as a support comes from 2 places. First, you give your ADC a free lane to farm, as you can pretty much zone the enemy bottom lane 1v2 as your ADC farms while you poke them out. Second, you play pretty much like a carry outside of lane, so you aren't just focused on what some people might find the boring part of support. You get to poke people out, zone them, and have huge AoE impact in teamfights, sometimes even one-shotting carries you catch out. So, if you want to play a support without dragging your team down with a troll pick, go with Zyra. She's tried and true. And that will finish things off for our top 3 champions to main on 10.15. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks so much for watching. Remember to let us know what role you think is most broken in the comments below, and be sure to join our community Discord. I can't wait to see you back for next video. Until then, good luck on the Rift, stay safe, and wash your hands.